we had a situation with the Olympic Games and the opening ceremony where the Christian faith was openly mocked, and a lot of people got a bit worked up about it. Of course, as we should, so don't misunderstand me, please, but number one, why are we surprised, and do we really think this is the first time this has happened? So St. Luke is a really good example of how to live in a world where Christ is offensive. We know that under communism, millions of people were martyred for their faith. Practically all hierarchs and all priests, all monks and nuns, all the faithful were martyred. So this shouldn't trouble us. And we also need to remember that it's the blood of the martyrs that nourishes the soil of the church. So the church was never silenced. So if, as Khrushchev had said, he was going to put the last priest and have him in a museum as a kind of display, if that was his goal, well, it's not the case, because after 74 years of communism, it was the tolling bells of the last few churches that were standing that declared that the new day has begun. Now, we know a lot about the life of St. Luke. He's a contemporary saint. There are people alive today who got his blessing. His grandchildren are still alive. Pardon my ignorance, I'm not sure if his children are still alive, but his grandchildren are still alive. So there's a lot of information about him. There's videos of him, there's eyewitness accounts, there's records kept by the KGB and their variations of his life. There's his own autobiography, there's medical references to him. He's still studied by medical practitioners for his work in pyogenic infections. His relics were uncovered in 1996, and he was canonized in the year 2000, so he's a very new saint of our church. And his fame spread like wildfire across the world. A miracle-working saint. Now, why does St. Luke perform more miracles than others? That is God's will, but remember, the recovering church that had been oppressed for 3-4 decades needed this. And maybe some of you have experienced a miracle from St. Luke. He's a saint that we particularly venerate in our home. One of our family members was not really saved, sounds a bit dramatic, but saved from the process of surgery because of the saint. And so I tried to do my best, particularly this evening, to do justice to the saint. He doesn't need me to speak for him. Listening to the akathist in the church, if I stop and we just reflect on what we heard, we know the saint. But if we sort of start with a historical context, because St. Luke bridges the pre-revolution Russia and revolutionary Russia. He was born in 1877, so he was of age and he was already practicing during the Russo-Japanese War. And in that period of history, there was a sense of dread and anticipation. Society was rotten, and you could just, something was going to set something off. And I don't want to sound fatalistic, but, you know, sometimes I sort of think to myself, is Western civilization at that point, you know? Are we sort of 1915 Russia in 2024? Because, yeah, anything goes and it's Christ who is offensive. But that shouldn't bother us. Now, we heard a reference in the Akathist to Saint Tikhon, who was the Patriarch of Moscow, the confessor, and other saints who suffered terribly. Just the fact that he had to carry the burden of being the first hierarch of the church during this period would have been enough, I suppose, to make someone a saint, but he suffered imprisonment and hardship as well. And speaking about the revolution, he said that the night will be long and very dark. So he foretold the darkness of communist Russia. But if I can just got a little segue here. All of the struggles we face in our lives are just a dark night. So whether they go for a long period or a short period, they are a dark night. And they might be a really dark and stormy and windy and scary night, and they might be a very long one, but they will pass. They will pass. So those words were prophetic. And if the aim, and it was, of the Bolsheviks and then the communist governments was to, rid the world of the opium of the masses, the church, as Karl Marx called it, didn't succeed. Didn't succeed. As much as Russia might be involved in some horrible things today with the invasion of another country, the simple folk are Orthodox, and their faith was not eradicated. So as much as that might have been the aim of some, that dark night passed, and a golden dawn shone.